I want to clarify something with my last video, as I seem to confuse a few people. When I was talking about at the end about us coming together, by us I meant Canadian people or anyone around the world who cares about what's going on internationally. And what I'm talking about here is government corruption and corporate greed. That's what I've been talking about for quite some time now. Large corporations, especially international corporations known as globalists, gain more and more rights and freedoms, while we the people lose more and more of our rights and freedoms. A reporter recently expressed his concern how Industry Canada has doled out $22.1 billion in corporate welfare since 1961. Concern has also been expressed over CETA, the free trade agreement with the European Union, which hasn't yet been signed, as it proposes to undercut municipalities' right to buy local. It grants foreign investors the right to sue municipal governments over disagreements, and significantly increases drug costs, if signed. But what I'm mainly here to talk about is the investor trade dispute. I meant to bring this up months ago, but I've been distracted. This was signed recently under the Trans-Pacific Strategic Economic Partnership, a free trade agreement with China. The investor trade dispute will allow for Chinese companies to challenge our national laws. If the Court of Canada rules against a company or a corporation of China in favor of the government, that Chinese company or corporation will have the right to go to a tribunal to challenge our national laws. Now, this tribunal process already exists under NAFTA, although very few people are aware of this. 90% of the rulings with the United States disputes with Canadian companies, the United States lost 90% of the time. 90% of the time. Of course, this shouldn't be a surprise. The tribunal is made up of 3 members, one representing the nation, one representing the corporate interest, and one that is agreed upon by both parties. Now, this might sound fair, but bear in mind, this is about overruling our national laws. If you think about the expense, the time, and the frustration, and all the personal dangers that one or a group of people would take on to fight a large corporation, imagine how much more frustrating it would be to know that after you actually win, finally, your case, that corporation will have the right then to appeal that decision to an international tribunal. And so all that taxpayers' expense for so-called justice is now up in the air. It can all be overturned by this tribunal, which seems to rule against the nations about 90% of the time. That would seem to be the purpose of this tribunal, after all, corporate greed. I'm going to read to you now an excerpt from an Australian government page. It will be linked, of course, in the video information. This is under the section called Investor-State Dispute Resolution. Some countries have sought to insert investor-state dispute resolution clauses into trade agreements. Typically, these clauses empower businesses from one country to take international legal action against the government of another country for alleged breaches of the agreement, such as for the policies that allegedly discriminate against those businesses in favor of the country's domestic businesses. The Gillard government supports the principle of national treatment, that foreign and domestic businesses are treated equally under the law. However, the government does not support provisions that would confer greater legal rights on foreign businesses than those available to domestic businesses. Nor will the government support provisions that would constrain the ability of Australian governments to make laws on social, environmental, and economic matters in circumstances where those laws do not discriminate between domestic and foreign businesses. The government has not and will not accept provisions that limit its capacity to put health warnings or plain packaging requirements on tobacco products or its ability to continue the pharmaceutical benefits scheme. The Australian government signed this specific partnership, but they refused to sign the investor trade dispute for these reasons. Harper, however, took it upon himself to do so. So, what are we going to do about this then? We could just sit on our hands and hope that the Liberals get in with the majority government, and hope that Justin Trudeau actually cares about this country and decides to do something about it. Technically, I'm not sure if this agreement really represents Canada, since it was done by a rogue prime minister, truly, in secret, on his own, and in no way that he represent the interests of our parliament or our people whatsoever. Would Justin Trudeau care enough about this country? Would he have the guts to actually stand up and do something about it? Maybe, but that's a big if. Free trade itself was a liberal idea, although the Conservatives have certainly jumped on board with it. All free trade manages to do is to allow international companies and corporations to buy up other companies from other countries, as well as in some cases actual property previously owned by foreign governments. And it allows them to take jobs to foreign countries for slave wages. How does that benefit us, the people? Corporations are now literally, as I've just proven to you, rising above our national laws. They are able to defy our national laws. How difficult it will be to stand up to them. In the first place, they have lots of money, lots of sway. Money talks. If you actually manage to beat them in the court of law, they can take it to this tribunal, a third party. American and Chinese companies are capable of doing this right now. Perhaps soon European companies as well. And where will it stop? Harper has talked about the need for a global governance. He has said the G20 is the closest thing that we have to this so far. And so this is the situation that we find ourselves in. Our leaders working on their own, doing as they wish, in the interests of corporate empires and not us, the people. We are not informed about this. We must find this out through each other, through our own research, or by happening upon a channel or a website like this that happens to have this information. Don't you think that the people of Canada have the right to know about this? Why haven't we been told? Although technically we have been, barely. Our government no longer seems to represent us. The mainstream media no longer seems to inform us. The business world is, of course, only interested in its own interests, meaning money and power, so they can obtain more money. And so where does that leave us? It leaves us on the outside, looking in. But united, we might actually do something about this. Protesting can't hurt, but it's only a start. I am, of course, not encouraging violence here, but we must take some kind of action. Spreading this information, informing each other, is important. So please spread this information, please inform other people, and let's talk about what we might do to put an end to this. If our leaders will not listen to us, how do you suppose we may make them listen to us? How loud do we really have to speak? What kind of stance may we need to take? How many numbers? How many independent organizations, such as the Council of Canadians? Perhaps if we all came together and put all our resources together, we might come up with a solution.